Hey YouTube, this is Scarecrow Kaiser. I'm going to be doing a deck profile here, the first of my set 12 deck profiles. It's a very great set. It changes the meta a lot, I think. Other than introducing like a new clan and revitalizing old clans. This deck profile will be for Silver Thorn Pale Moon, which is a very new way to look at Pale Moon. This deck is very good. It's not as complicated. It doesn't take as much skill to play as a lot of other Pale Moon builds. But this deck, because it's so consistently strong, it doesn't need as much skill to run it effectively. And it's trying to address certain things that old Pale Moon decks couldn't do like the most efficiently, and which I'm speaking to soul charging. This deck manages to build up soul but not blindly. Speaking of which, I'll get started in the deck profile with its starting Vanguard. Leona, I think is how you say her name? Yeah. This card is probably one of the best starting Vanguards in the game. She is a very, very good card. Other than being a 5k forerunner, whenever she boosts and that attack hits, you can like look at your top two and add a card to soul, which is very good. It speaks to what I just mentioned a minute ago of this deck can build soul, but it doesn't have to do it completely blindly. It's kind of semi-blind because you're not going to know what those top two cards are, but it's letting you like build up a soul like as best you can the way you'd want it to be, and not just throwing in triggers or putting extras of cards that you don't need. You get to pick. It's not a huge like advantage because you're only looking at two, but it's still very good. This card has no cost. It doesn't have to move the soul. It's just every time you hit. So in this deck, when you ride if you go second, or you can ride grade 1, attack, look at your top two, next turn ride a grade 2, attack, hit, look at your top two, next turn you ride your grade 3, attack, hit. So you get to build a toolbox of a soul like for very minimal effort. This is a fantastic card. Onto the triggers. We're running 4 of the Silverthorn critical, and then 4 poison jugglers, so 8 crit. Then we're running 4 of the Silverthorn draws and 4 of the Silverthorn heals. This trigger lineup, in this build for Silverthorns, I don't necessarily like stand triggers. I found crits to just be as direct as I need to be, and this deck can put like high powered attacks on your opponent. So the crits go very well with the deck. So yeah, and if we're gonna play a crit that's not a Silverthorn, obviously you want it to be one that has an actual useful skill. So yeah, that's it for the triggers for the grade 1s. We're playing 4 of the Silverthorn Perfect Guard because it's a perfect guard. Anyone who knows how to play this game isn't going to argue that. Then we've got our 4 grade 1 7k booster who can swing for 10. So these cards are almost always staple in a deck, in a archetype deck, because they're so versatile that they can be a grade 1 boost or a 10k beater. Like if the card in front of them dies, this card can just step up and start attacking. So yeah, and in a deck like this, where if it gets into a soul, and you can just call out, like if you ride it, so you don't really care that you're losing this valuable card because you can always like recruit it back. Very good card. Next, we have 3 Silverthorn Assistant Irina. One card out of place there. 3 Irina. Irina is a very great card. She's a solid 7k boost, and when you play her, You get to do what your starter does, which is where you look at your top 2 and you can add 1 to soul. So this card contributes to your soul, like help builds it up faster. Against certain matchups, like Narukami or Kagero, who can kill your starter, it'll really end up hurting you late game that you couldn't build a soul. So having something like this to kind of back up, as well as in games where they don't kill it, where you can just add on. This card is very great. It's also pretty cool when you get to call it from soul and then get to build up more resources, basically replace itself. So that's a very solid card. And our last grade 1, which apparently we gave you a sneak preview of, is 3 of this card, our Beast Tamer, Anna. She's kind of like a Midnight Bunny, not quite as good, but still pretty cool. She's a Silver Thorn. When she boosts and the attack hits, you can counterblast 1 and call a card from your soul, and then at the end of the turn that card goes back. So you don't get to keep it, you still get to get a free booster and or attacker out of it for the turn. You lose it, but it's not that big of a deal. And in this deck, where you get +1s, being able to, every turn, being able to call a card, and that card gets to attack and then go away. It's not that bad because you kind of want an empty zone there so you can plus next turn off of your limit breaks. And this card teams up very great with the Vanguard, because who wants to block a Vanguard really, if they aren't going to die from it anyway. So great card. It's a grade 1 that puts pressure, and that's always good. Under our grade 2s, we got 4 of our Silver Thorn 10Ks. It's a 10K beater. I can't say too much other than that. In this type of meta we have, where Kagero and Narukami are obviously, like they usually are, very commonly played decks, very high tier meta decks. Being able to ride a 10K vanilla on your Vanguard turn 2 is great, because if you go first and you ride and then you end up riding this, it can help protect you from like things like Heat Nail Salamander or Linchu, which you really don't want to lose this card early game as your starter. This card contributes a lot, so if you can ride this and then your opponent doesn't ride a 10K, you can easily protect this card from harm, as well as just being a beat stick. Next we have our 4 12K attacker for Silver Thorns. There's not much else to say. 12K attackers are very solid. They can attack at an 11 without even being boosted. Even like with just a 5K behind them, even just a 4K behind them, they can still hit good numbers against anything that's not a cross ride. So it's a great card. And last of our grade 2s, we have 3 of her. Our second Beast Tamer. When she's like the grade 1 Beast Tamer, except it's when she attacks. So if she swings and she hits, you can pay 1, call a card from the soul, and at the end of the turn it goes back. So again, it's not a plus, but you do get to call that card, get a card out to attack with or boost with for free. So it puts pressure on your opponent, especially if you can team up both the Beast Tamers together. Because if you have these 2 Beast Tamers teamed together and that hits, you could have a completely empty other rear guard column, fill it up with a grade 1 and a grade 2, and then swing. You won't get to keep the cards, but yeah, this is obviously a great card because it applies pressure. And if you want to get good at Vanguard, you need to start appreciating pressure moves are good moves. Almost better than big attacks, if not for early game. Under our grade 3s, we have our 4 Laqueer regular. This card is not that great. This card is kind of vanilla a lot. I mean, you get to utilize her limit break sometimes, and it can be pretty good, even game winning late game. But in general, this card is not so hot. If there were something better to play, I would rather play it, but it's still okay. So, but we have to play it because not many other options. And then our last grade 3 is our reverse Lukier, our cross ride. This card is really freaking good. Essentially, it's a counterblast 1 for a +1. And so you can just keep doing it like every turn. And something to commonly do with this is like your Vanguard's booster. Sure, your Vanguard will be a weak attack like either an 11 or a 13. So it's a 10 guard 2 to pass. However, you're increasing the power of that rear guard column by 5 when you do it. So you're kind of making up for the fact that you didn't boost this. So your opponent's basically gonna have to do with the same amount of guard, but you're getting the +1 out of the move. So this card is really solid. And one of the really cool things about this deck is because of cards like her or the grade 1 assistant, cards that let you like look at your top cards and then add cards of soul, it's really easy to get a cross ride off in this deck. You either do it the typical way, or you can in your first few turns by using her in the grade 1, if you look at your top 2 and these would end up being there, you can just add this to soul. And when you get to turn 3 and you ride your grade 3 reverse, you're at a turn 3 cross ride. So, or if you end up riding this but you weren't cross ride on your turn 3, but later on you end up checking and seeing this and adding soul, now you've achieved your cross ride. So yeah, this deck is actually, as I said, very solid. It can definitely compete against a high tier meta deck. I would almost consider this like one of the higher parts of the meta. FYI, if you didn't know, when this set first came out in Japan, the same day it came out, this build, not this exact build, I can't remember his exact build for sure, but Silver Thorns topped their regionals there. I think they got like 2nd or 3rd or something, which was very impressive for a time because no one saw that coming. So this deck, definitely don't overlook it. This is a very strong deck. And it can very easily compete with other high tier meta decks. So yeah, thank you for watching.